Well, it's been 2 years.
It has, yes.
2 years since we've seen each other.
Yes.
And how have you been?
Good, busy, busy, yes. When I came to MONSTERAMA 2 years ago for the first time, and Madeline, we became instant friends.
Instant friends.
And we kept in touch with each other.
Yes. It's been very fun to watch you do your plays and keep up with what you're doing, and you're still teaching, correct?
Yes. When I'm not acting and coming here, I teach Shakespeare to acting students.
And tell us a little bit about that. Where does that take place?
It takes place at the Stella Adler Studio and also the H.B. Herbert Berghoff Studio, two places in New York where they train young actors. And, you know, Gothic, talk about Gothic. The wonderful thing about the Poe films is they're not horror films at all. Both Roger Corman and Vincent said, no, these are Gothic tales, because Edgar Allan Poe calls these stories tales of mystery and imagination. And indeed, they are. But also what is so wonderful about them is the language. Because Poe, the way in which he writes so eloquently, is a joy. And Vincent and I were both Shakespeare actors anyway, so we felt quite at home in the Poe world. And you know, one reason why I love doing, I've done a recording of Ligeia like Vincent did, but also why I love teaching Shakespeare is that the abundance of language where the heart actually can put its feelings into words, because this is something that we are losing now. We are losing vocabulary. And,
that's very true. You make quite a point.
It's very dangerous and sad. I feel that young lovers today, they would never have that balcony scene. They would be...
I'm just going to send you a text.
They're texting emojis to each other.
When you're teaching your young students, do they have... I realize that would be sort of a biased group that is interested. Do you find that they have the same language skills as students you had that were from a different generation?
I think that less so now. Because of course they're not taught in school either to read Shakespeare or even to write. You know, they're not even taught the vocabulary in that a student, you know, was saying to me, I don't know what this word means, so I said, look it up in the dictionary. And because she didn't know her alphabet, she didn't know where to look. And this is frightening. Anyway, this is
a brief aside.
Yes, but this means that, you know, our culture now is anything but Gothic, and I think that that is our loss. So there's something to do with all these wonderful films that we're seeing, you know, that have this wonderful these imaginary worlds where people are living different kind of lives and imagining what a different kind of society might be like. So I feel that there's something the same about doing The Tomb of Ligeia and teaching Shakespeare.
Absolutely, I think it, and to add to your point, I think it really adds to us culturally, so because we get to experience these pretend situations or imaginings, as you and we get to live these situations that are a lot more fun to watch others perform them that have the skill set to perform them.
Yes.
And the environment that Roger Corman created, and
Oh yes, we were talking a lot about Roger Corman, the panel, of course, but he was he and Vincent, extraordinarily cultured men, both of them, such interesting men, really classy guys. So
I say you're pretty classy too.
well, the three of us, we made a good trio. But I loved working with them. And indeed, when we were doing The Tomb of Ligeia, we had this wonderful script. Robert Town, who had worked with Roger Corman before, but this was the biggest thing that he had done. And so I'll be talking, actually I won't say it all now because I'll be talking about Ligeia more tomorrow. But just back to the Gothic thing, I think that it's what is wonderful about all these different films that we're seeing, and the fact that, you know, when I have come to these conventions, when I started coming, it was, well, years ago I started. When I first, Cinema Wasteland, I think was the very, very first one. In 2008, I think it was that I started. And then I have loved it because I was thrilled to find that the fans love these films and love us. And you know, with these early films, residuals were not written into our contract. So when I make a signature, you know, you actually give me some money, I consider that this is my residual for making those films. But it's thrilling to meet, you know, on stage I'm working with my audience, and when I'm filming I don't meet my audience, except now, here, I do meet my audience and I enjoy it very much. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I think that's a testament to the breadth of work that you've done, that so many adoring fans are here to appreciate and ask you questions and get to speak with you and hear hear your voice, and it's so lovely. You know, we're so glad that you did what you did and pursued this career. It's a very honorable, I think, important career.
Well, the profession that I started in, all those many, how many now? I mean, over 60 years ago, bears no relation to the profession as it is now for actors, because then theatre was it, and there were regular theatre companies, and so I learned on the job in repertory theatres, where, you know, you would play.
And this is in England.
This is in England, but also in this country, there were more permanent theatres here. But even in England, there's very few permanent theatres now. And so it's become show business. And so in many ways, I think that the business side of it has betrayed the actor, because we are not central now. It's all the ratings, you know, and it started with high TVQ, and then the ratings, and now, of course, celebrity, you know, if you're... it's different, and also there were always RADA and you know, the acting academies. But now I went to Bristol University, which was the only university that taught drama, and now every university has a drama department. And every university is churning out hundreds of thousands of new young actors into a profession where there's not nearly enough work for those of us already there. So it's different now, and the young ones that I teach they have to create their own work and have to, you know, be actors and writers and entrepreneur. And so earlier this year I was in a production of Moscow, 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 which is a version of the Three Sisters, where everybody swears all the time. And so it was as if that's what they were thinking underneath Chekhov's words. But that was with some of my ex-students who had just graduated. And they said, oh, would you come and play Anfisa? And so I said, yeah, sure, you know, I'll support you. Even Anfisa swore, the old nanny. Got a big laugh. Anyway, coming back to what this is supposed to be about, the Gothic, even the Omen series, you know, about the devil. Goodness, you know, I mean, we're in real Gothic territory there. You know, the devil creating all this wickedness and murder. And, Mike Hodges, who was the original director of Damien Omen 2, he wanted to really explore what Damien felt like when he discovered what had been the role that had been imposed on him. And the scene, I don't know if you remember this, but there's a scene between Damien and his cousin, where he begs his cousin to come along with him on this terrifying journey, and the cousin can't. And in the reading that we did, first of all, before we started filming with Mike Hodges, that scene was heartbreaking, heartbreaking. He certainly wanted to make all the deaths, the tension of the deaths, like Hitchcock, you know, so that, for instance, when Joan Hart has seen the boy, and he knows that she knows that she knows that he knows, and then the car goes wrong, and she's worried, and being a minister's daughter, I was able to say the Lord's Prayer and the 23rd Psalm and everything while I was driving along, and then I get out of the car and there's this bird. Oh, so I go and get my bag and everything, and I come out and oh, the bird is gone. Look around, absolutely no sign. And then I see the buildings over there, and I think, oh, thank goodness, safety. And so I'm walking along the road, and at which point both I and the audience think, oh no, it's not going to happen now. And that's when it does happen. Yeah. When everybody jumps in.
Who needs coffee?
That's the kind of horror, or the Hitchcock way of doing, you know. But it took a bit longer. And so Harvey Bernhard, who was the producer, first of all he said, oh no, we don't want to know about what Damien's thinking. No, no, no. And as far as my death, he said, oh no, it takes too long, get on with it, we'll get on to the next death. So I would love to have seen the film that Mike Hodges would have made. I mean, Joan Hart's death, we redid it quicker. It's still awful. Whenever I see it, my heart starts beating, I must say.
Did Mike, was he taken off? Did he walk away, or did he get fired, Mike Hodges?
He was fired.
Fired?
Yes, because they didn't want that good a film. They thought they'd make enough money with a less good film. And I was very upset because I know that Mike wanted to take the Gothic implications of the devil being placed into our world and explore that, so that it built on the first Omen was a good film. Wonderful actors, Gregory Peck and everybody, and of course I had William Holden. Oh, I'm totally lucky. I worked with William Holden and Vincent Price. Two very classy guys and wonderful actors. And also, I know that Harvey Bernhard said, "Oh, never like that red coat." And Harvey Bernhard did the commentary on the film, and then says, "Oh yes, well now this character, Joan Hart, comes out. Don't know, can't remember the name of the actress." So anyway, that was that. But there were possibilities in the Omen films to really go into the Gothic side of it. I haven't seen the latest one, but I don't know whether they went further there.
I've heard some good word on it. I didn't think much, on another remake, but suffice that it's pretty good. That's the word on it. So.
Well, good. I must see it. I must see it.
Yeah, it's worth seeing.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
It's worth seeing.
Worth seeing.
The third is worth seeing.
Oh, okay. Good. Yes.
You mentioned Hitchcock repeatedly, so my question to you is, apart from the films, Hitchcock, as you know, was the host of the longest running anthology series ever on television. Did you ever appear in that anthology?
No, I didn't.
So many great actors did.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to have done.
Yes,
that is a wonderful series.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I agree with you.
And he was making a film in England.
Frenzy.
I beg your pardon?
Frenzy.
Frenzy?
Yeah. Anyone? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that must have been it. But anyway, my agent got me an audition with Hitchcock. And so I thought, of course, I was very blonde in those days. And so I thought, well, I'll be the next Hitchcock blonde. Why not? And so I walked in, and he said, Miss Shepherd, pleased to meet you. Do you ever play brunette? But then he did give me a Hitchcock interview, so I took away something, it was good of him, really, to at least give me something to talk about afterwards. Yeah. And he was talking about tension, and how to build up the horror in a scene, which is, as I described, what Mike Hodges wanted to do, that the horror comes when you don't expect it. And
that seems like a particularly memorable audition. Did you have any other experiences for auditions that were particularly memorable?
Well, my very, very first film was with Michael Powell.
Ooh!
Yes. And it was called The Queen's Guards. So I was in a movie with the Queen. Ooh. Because the first scene took place at the Trooping of the Colour. And it was in those days when very long films were made with an intermission. And so he wanted to explore the fact that the guards who were dressed up, in all that fancy costume for the Trooping of the Colour, with the high hats and all their routines, that they are actually working soldiers. And so then the next scenes would be in Aden, for instance, and it took place, the film, over this very long, it took place over a period of 10 years, where they were, the family story, Daniel Massey was in it, and his father, playing his father. And so the soldiers went through a whole elaborate careers in the military, which Powell was very interested in showing that they were real soldiers in action. And Judith Stott and I played their girlfriends, and we kept swapping partners over the 10 years. And so it was that kind of an interesting film. But the producers, and talking about auditions, when I was to be auditioned by Michael Powell, I was told, he'll bully you, he will be awful, but whatever you do, don't cry. So, he did bully me, and I didn't cry, and I got the part. Susan, a model. And, but then the producers said, oh no, the time for these long films is finished now, so you need to cut it by half. So Michael Powell then has disowned that film because it was not the film he made. And I have over the years been in touch with Thelma Schoonmaker, his widow, of course, as you know. And she is, I think, trying to restore the film. Certainly wants to include it in his repertoire.
Have you had a chance to see the new documentary on Powell and Pressburg? It's a new documentary.
Oh no, I haven't.
I wonder if they might mention your film. I don't know.
Well, I must seek it out.
Yeah, it's in circulation now, and it's going to be on disc in October. But
yes.
What's interesting is that that film you're in with him, directed by Powell, it's right after Peeping Tom, so he was kind of a pariah, wasn't he? A little bit Peeping Tom got in trouble. So I'm interested. That's the next film you did that you were in. So that's interesting.
I wasn't in any other of his.
No. I'm just saying that Peeping Tom. They say Peeping Tom killed his career.
Right.
And the film you're in is the one he did after Peeping Tom.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yes.
So he had no power at that time because I think he was having struggling.
And of course I'm thrilled that I worked with him.
Oh,
Because I'm a
greatest
fan of his movies. Yes. But then that was my first, and then my second was The Tomb of Ligeia.
How did you have to audition for your Danger Man episode?
Oh, Danger Man!
How was Patrick?
I was. I think I was just cast in that. I was at that time. I was very big on television, and so I think I got that role, and I was thrilled to work with Patrick McGowan.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. I was told before I started work, it said, "You are never to touch Mr. McGowan." He kept himself safe, his Irish Catholic family.
Oh, goodness.
And so he did, and he wouldn't use guns. He had all his principles.
Yes.
But of course, what a wonderful actor. When you work with the best actors, it brings out the best in you, of course.
Did he have that aura of intensity when he showed up, when you were with him?
He kept to himself, but he was, we had a very professional working relationship, and we did have not an intimate relationship, but we had a working relationship. I was a German and setting up things that he then saw through. He defeated me in the end. But of course,
you were the femme fatale. Were you the femme fatale for him?
Yes. So he avoided that. But then I worked with him in a play on Broadway.
Oh, really? Broadway?
An English play, Pack of Lives, and he played the detective, the MI5 guy, and he hadn't been. I saw Patrick McGowan play Brand in the old days, the Ibsen. Stunning. Oh, goodness, ran a huge role. And he was wonderful. And I was always sad that he did not continue as a stage actor. He got caught up, in the films and in the series, and had his own ideas about how he was developing those series, then leading, of course, to The Prisoner.
Yes.
But in this play, he was MI5, where he should have been in some sort of, raincoat. But no, he hadn't been on Broadway for 17 years or something. And so, he was Savile Row dressed and, looked like somebody. And so because of his background, I think they thought, he must be a double agent. So he really altered the level of the play. Anyway. But I remember one night, we were at a party, we were showing, I think it was the end of The Prisoner, and we were all sitting on the floor, wine and stuff, and I was sitting next to Patrick, and as he was watching this, I heard him murmur to himself, "Oh God, how did I get away with this?"
You almost did.
Yes.
Not many people can say they watched the last episode of The Prisoner with Patrick next to him.
Could you say again?
I said not too many people can say they watched the last episode of The Prisoner with Patrick next to him.
Exactly.
That's
yes,
pretty cool.
yes. No, that was very special.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you said it's a shame that we're losing our language.
Yes.
And I also remember that you said that you admired Mr. Corman and Mr. Price because they were cultured men. What are we going to lose in Gothic if we lose our ability to understand Shakespeare and Poe? What are we going to?
I think we're losing language. I mean, in these films, certainly the script that Robert Towne wrote, aside from the fact that it was a wonderful love story, the scenes where Verdon is talking to Christopher and about his whole theory about classics and everything. I mean, there's a lot of big language in that film. And of course, Vincent carries it off wonderfully. And his whole manner, of the way he speaks, not just the language, but the way he speaks the language. And I think that in science fiction, again, it's tales of mystery and imagination, which is wonderful, and there's a lot of young people are very attracted to that, including my son, who's encyclopedic knowledge of practically every film that's ever been made, and who was in it, and who directed, and everything. I think that these imaginary worlds that are created in these this genre is valuable to us. And certainly, I mean, as far as Shakespeare is concerned, because it's written by an actor, and Shakespeare being in character when he finds the words, I mean, he was obviously extremely so observant of human nature. He could be one minute he could be Juliet on the balcony, and then the next minute he can be Romeo talking, or he can be... I know that in acting Shakespeare, or you need to be experiencing it, because he was. And so he inherited the iambic pentameter, but then transformed it. So instead of da-dum, 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 which is a very effective verse for drama, he, because he was in character when he was finding the words, then if the character gets upset, then the rhythm, da-dum, 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 dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-da-da, da-da-da, da. So he transformed blank verse, which I now call Elizabethan rap, because all Marlowe's characters sound like Marlowe, and all Shakespeare's characters sound like themselves, because Shakespeare was inside them when he found the words. And I think that immediacy of putting your feelings into words is something that is valuable from Shakespeare, because it reminds us, when Shakespeare is played in that spirit in which it's written, it reminds us what it feels like to be that alive inside. And I think that being in a lot of these Gothic films that we're talking about, the characters are involved in a completely different kind of world, but they embrace it and are eloquent about it. But I think if we lose the ability to put feelings into words, we can't communicate with each other. You know, we can't.
Was Robert Towne on set?
Sometimes he was.
Was he doing rewrites?
He didn't know. The script was pretty set because Roger then, you know, would base his own screen shots. You know, well, I can say that I'll be saying it all again on the Roger Corman. But Roger Corman even went to an acting school to learn how we actors work, so that he would talk to us before, to Vincent about his character, to me about my character, so that he entrusted the roles to us, and so we didn't have to waste time on the set. And then he was a brilliant storyteller visually. And
was he a stickler with the words, with the script?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The same as, you know, when you have a good script, you go with what the instead of making up as you go along. No, that's why it is an articulate film. But I do think that science fiction and the kind of worlds that are created in this Gothic way, which means it just opens you up to a whole new way of looking at things, and I think that it certainly appeals to a lot of young people. Still, it hasn't gone out of date because it's to be working to create these extraordinary new worlds that are created in the kind of films that we'll be seeing, and of course all the Poe films. Yes.
But you sort of see that as a precursor in Shakespeare would say, like The Tempest, opening up worlds of imagination.
Yes, I think that certainly in The Tempest, and what is also interesting in the later plays, all the later plays are about families reconciling in very, very different circumstances, but things, relationships that have been broken, finding a way to come together in the end, which is very moving. But I think that Shakespeare, I mean, he never made up his own plots. He obviously was a huge reader, and so would whether it's the Bible or history, and of course he had a classical education because Henry VIII wanted the English to be eloquent, and so he founded grammar schools. So Shakespeare went to the Stratford Grammar School and had a classical education, translating into Latin and out of Latin and into Greek and playing it out. And so he grew up playing with words. And at the time language was being created, he created thousands of words himself. You know, if there wasn't one, he'd find it, he'd make one up. Assassination, for instance. Macbeth. But I mean, these Gothic worlds obviously appeal to you, which is why you were attracted to these kind of films. That seems to me.
The seductive allure
Yes, well, if you put it that way. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Vincent Price was, of course, an older actor in that movie with you.
Yes.
He had a film career spanning I don't know how many years previous to that. Did he share any interesting stories from his previous films, or people that he had acted with in any other films that you might remember?
Not really. We didn't have, quite honestly, even though it was a Corman epic of 5 weeks, not 5 days,
Right.
We were really intent on, and there was a lot of work we did together, rehearsing together, you know. But he, I must say that when we nearly got burnt in the fire, he did say, "I have got singed in so many Roger Corman films." He was just, and of course, such an accomplished man in many, many, many ways, and just delightful to be with, to spend time with, and a wonderful raconteur, very stylish guy, yes.
What was, do you recall that audition for Tomb of Lygia? Do you remember what that was like?
The Tomb of Lygia audition, I will be repeating myself when we,
Oh,
when we
well.
come to talk about Lygia, so if you come to that too. But anyway, it'll probably be different then anyway. The thing was that it's a love story that Robert Town had made, and so he said, well, Vincent is too old. Richard Chamberlain should play it. And of course, Roger said, absolutely not. I mean, can you imagine Richard Chamberlain as a Burton film? Anyway, Vincent was only 53, for God's sake. And so they darkened his hair.
You were 20s, right?
I was 27, yes.
Twice.
But because he was an older man, they needed a young woman who was not an earnest. And so I was an experienced theatre actress at that time, so I could bring a bit more weight and also handle the language and everything. And so Paul Myersberg was a friend, and of course he was Roger's assistant on that film, so I think that a word was put in there. I don't actually, I'm not sure, I think it was an interview rather than a real audition. To see whether I would match Vincent in this way. Oh my goodness, I mean, I had no trouble falling in love with Burton Fell.
That's great.
So the affinity with the Gothic background, I mean, I think that this is how I see it, that Gothic covers quite a lot of ground. And as I say, I think that a lot of the films that we'll be seeing over these next few days are Gothic, in that they are not a bit modern and ordinary, and they are filled with imagination, which is why we're all attracted to them. Yes. So what do you think about that? Yes.
Well,
Yes.
my question is, have you read any of Poe's stories, or have you read them all?
I think I have more or less read them all because I'm interested. I've done this recording of Lygia, but I'm interested in doing more of the Poe stories, recording them. And when I was working in Baltimore, I of course visited all the Poe places, like his grave, aside from anything else, and all the statues. But the various Poe societies
Yes.
who are very interested in recording more of the stories, because they're all extremely readable and they're wonderful. A lot of, and of course the poems too, you know,
Yes,
Annabel
yes.
Lee. And he created a lot of wonderful women in these stories too, and love stories. Of course, in his own life, you know, I mean, his love story with his wife, his young cousin wife. But he was.
Do you have a favorite of one of his stories or poems? Besides the wonderful movie.
I think that I would need to. It's been a while actually since I was reading some of the others, but he's a good. Sit down with some Poe stories. You know, the collected Poe stories is a good book to have.
When you got to work with Vincent Price, had you already were familiar with him and you knew who he was, or was it just a hello? You are just a dreamboat.
Well, I mean, Martine Bezek and I became friends through conventions, and I saw a lot of her in LA. And of course, it's extraordinary that although I was English, I was never in the Hammer films. And so Peter Cushing and who's the other one? The other one, Christopher Lee. They were the ones I knew, and so I didn't know about the Poe films. I knew Vincent Price from Laura. That was what I thought. Oh, Vincent Price. Oh yes, that great guy from Laura. And so I then was educating myself. So it was extraordinary that instead of being a Hammer girl, I became a Roger Corman Poe girl. But the Hammer films, of course, well, as you know, you've met all the actresses who are, and I've met them all at these conventions too, and I'm thrilled that Martine is here. She would have some things to say about Gothic, I'm sure. Yes. Yes.
Do you have any particular favorite made-for-TV movies that you did?
Of the
made-for-TV movies that you did, any favorite?
Of the made-for-TV?
Yeah.
What at the very beginning, and the same thing happened in this country, when television started, this new medium, and as I said, you know, as far as I was concerned, theatre was it. So we were a bit snobby actually about television. You know, we do television to make money so we could go and work in the theatre. But what was wonderful in England and here too, all the best writers were writing for television because they were writing plays, not series and bits and pieces. No, plays. They were anthologies, all sorts of weekly anthologies of plays, and also because they had to be filmed all in one. They needed theatre actors to do it, so that we could create a whole role in a whole play and then play it live. So in England, last year, the British Archives Society got me over to talk about a play that I did in 1961, written by, I knew it. When I come up to his name, I think, oh God, I'll forget it. Yes, the Rumpold of the Bailey.
Leo McKernan?
John, a big one?
Leo McKernan?
No, the writer.
Oh, the writer. Yeah, he's a barrister, wasn't he?
This is embarrassing. Anyway, John Mortimer.
John Mortimer.
John Mortimer. A play called The Encyclopedist that I did with Cy Grant, who is an encyclopedia salesman, and I'm a housewife, and living a chaotic life. And he sells me. He persuades me that an encyclopedia would change my life. And so, in the next scene, I've smartened up. I got rid of my awful husband. I invite him to tea and all that. So there I have my encyclopedia. And the third scene is, it's all fallen apart. That has all changed. The encyclopedias are all smashed up all over the floor. So he said, you don't deserve these. He takes them away. Anyway, that was one play that I enjoyed very much doing. But of course, you know, we would rehearse it as a play, and then there would be the director would make his camera scripts for, it was usually 3 or 4, maybe even 5 cameras, and so then we would have dress rehearsal with the camera crews, where we would be given our marks for the shots, and then we would do it for real. Sometimes it was even actually live, but even so, it would be from beginning to end. And so it was a wonderful way. I mean, it meant that those plays not only were wonderfully written, but wonderfully acted too, because they were rehearsed, and so I enjoyed that. I worked with Alan Owen and John Mortimer and John Hopkins. So it was exciting, but it's the same thing in this country too. At the beginning of television, and still it's in the they're preserved, these wonderful plays that were done on television, written by all the writers, and then everything changed. No, very, very much so.
What was the name of that play?
The Encyclopedist. Yes.
With Lygia, was there a problem with this? I guess they didn't have censors, or there was no rating system back then, but the subject matter, implied necrophilia.
I think that I never heard a point made of that. I'm sort of reluctant to talk because this is what I will be talking about tomorrow.
Well, we can skip to a new topic, but you did continue on with your television career. So you were doing these plays.
Yes.
And then it did continue to transform.
Yes.
And so you continued onward.
Yes. But the young ones wouldn't have anything like the career that I had. So I'm very fortunate that I was an actor in the late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and still, but not enough theatre work now to live on. I was going to say something, but I'll say it tomorrow.
Stay tuned. Teasers. When is the film tomorrow?
It's the film is being. I think it's a wonderful new print. So do see it, even if you've seen it before. I must say I'm thrilled with the Tomb of Lygia. It has lasted over the years. As I see it now, I think it's a real classic. I'm really proud of it. And I had no idea, when I made it, I would have no idea that I would be sitting here at a convention like this, talking about it. It has lived with me all my life now. I'm proud of it, and I know Roger was, and I know that Vincent was too. I think they considered it was the best they had done. Yes.
Well, you've tried to encourage us to say, what interests us about the Gothic, and I think you're hitting on it there. I mean, the Gothic gives us an opportunity to talk about mystery and love, but also Tomb of Lygia, we get to talk about the loss of love is like. That gives us the language to do that.
Yes.
And one thing occurs to me, here in the South, the American South, we sort of developed something called Southern Gothic.
Oh, yes.
Like with Flannery O'Connor, where the grotesque is sort of like reflective of the inner soul.
Yes,
and so we sort of took that and developed that. So that's another way that it's developed.
Absolutely. Well, the word soul that you just used, your inner soul. I think it is wonderful to think in those terms, one's whole being. Shakespeare uses soul, meaning that, meaning as you're describing, your whole being. And to live on that kind of scale of emotion is wonderful. And yes, you say, the whole Southern culture has this, and of course, Tennessee Williams.
Yes.
And Tennessee Williams, like Shakespeare, if you're playing in Tennessee Williams, you can't just act it. You have to experience it. You have to be inside it, like with Shakespeare. And so if you play Blanche Dubois, you can't play it from the outside. You have to go through that, which is why it's such a wonderful role, but also takes out of you in order to go to those painful places that she goes to. Its life takes her. Oh, if only that salesman hadn't come through, he would never have learned about her past, and she would have ended up with Mitch when she said, sometimes there's God so quickly. But indeed, the emotional intensity in the South, I think, with the Southern culture in that way, is wonderful, wonderful. Yes. And here we are in the South.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yes, please ask me something else. Anything. Gothic or otherwise. If it's otherwise, we'll make it Gothic.
One thought occurred was you've done so many wonderful productions throughout your whole career. Was there one that was a particular favorite or a favorite of yours that we haven't talked about that was a lot of fun for you that you still think about?
All right, it's not exactly Gothic, but
It's all right.
in a way it is. I was supposed to do the Avengers, but Julian Wintle said, "We welcome your own ideas." Oh Lord, he should never have said that because I inundated them with ideas. So I lasted an episode and a half. There, I've gone off my... Oh, yes. So after that, and there's a wonderful... I should actually start really selling this. There's a wonderful 4-disc set of The Corridor People, where I played Sidi Van Epp, who is a Lebanese adventuress. And it is extraordinary stories, outrageous stories. And so it was like taking the Avengers and making it Gothic. It's a Gothic Avengers. So I'm thinking that I really want to promote it. Because I think that people at a convention like this would enjoy The Corridor.
I heard a lot of pencils come out, so I think that nobody can about this. Yeah. So I think we're delighted to learn.
There are 4 episodes in this, and the writer said, "That's it. I've said what I want to say with it, and I won't let anybody else write it. I don't want anybody else doing it. So it's just the 4." But Sidi Van Epp, I would say that Sidi Van Epp and Blanche Dubois, and the Shakespeare stuff, of course. And The Tomb of Ligeia, my double role. That was as thrilled to do that film, but I never realized then quite what a thrill it was going to be. Yes. And, as I've been talking about, you know, working with those two very, very classy guys, Roger Corman and Vincent Price. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Oh, well, I'm sure we're all going to have a wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Yes.